Room 105, the landmark hotel, bathed in pale yellow light. A bottle of Southern Comfort rolls by the bed. Next to a broken comb, Janis Joplin, the rock queen with a voice that tore the sky apart, had just stepped out to buy a pack of Marlboro cigarettes, her smile hiding a shattered heart. Minutes later, she collapsed. A dose of heroin stealing her breath at 27. But was it just the drugs that killed her? Or was there a darker secret, tied to those she loved or enemies she unknowingly crossed? From Port Arthur, Texas, Janis conquered the world with Piece of My Heart, but every note was a scar, every stage light a judgment. A crumpled note, never sent, whispered, "Does anyone see the real me? Why did the brightest star burn out so soon?" Join me as we step into Janis's tragic life, where glamour always walked with darkness. Subscribe and let's uncover what truly snuffed out Janis Joplin's light. Chapter 1. The start of a tragic climb to the top. In a small town where dreams meant frilly dresses and prom nights, one girl sang like the forgotten soul of a black blues singer. Port Arthur, Texas, in the 1940s, was a picture-perfect scene of green lawns and quiet Sundays, but Janis Joplin, born January 19th, 1943, didn't fit that picture. To her father, she was an enigma, a puzzle unsolved. Her mother, she wanted a daughter in white dresses with neatly combed hair, but that white dress stayed unworn in the closet. Janis loved the old records of Bessie Smith and Leadbelly, singing along in a raw, husky voice, as if her heart were ablaze. "I want the whole world to hear me," she whispered, clutching an imaginary microphone. But Port Arthur wasn't made for free spirits. At school, Janis faced relentless bullying, acne scarred her face, and her support for civil rights earned her cruel nicknames like Pig or N-Lover. Classmates cornered her, their mocking laughter cutting like knives. "You're a freak, but each night." The neon glow of Louisiana juke joints called her name, pulling her from Port Arthur's nightmare. There, she sang, and for the first time, she felt truly alive. Those secret trips were a spark of hope, but also a door to darkness. In 1962, Janis enrolled at the University of Texas, hoping to find her place. Instead, she was hurt even more deeply. Fraternity boys mocked her, voting her the ugliest man on campus. She stood frozen, their laughter stinging like salt in her pride. "I'm not pretty enough, not proper enough," she thought, her heart breaking. Janis dropped out, carrying her scars and dreams. She rebelled, even getting arrested for shoplifting in San Francisco in 1963, but the details of that case were never released. Was there something in it she never spoke of? She only said, "They don't want me, I'll show them who I am," under the Texas moonlight. Janis dreamed of a stage where her voice could drown out the judgments. The microphone in her hand was like a promise, but the scars on her face and heart planted dark seeds. If she hadn't been wounded, she might have survived. But would we still call her Janis Joplin if those childhood hurts hadn't scarred her? Would she have become the queen of rock? Let's find out. Chapter 2. The painful betrayal of fame. She stepped onto the stage, silencing thousands. But backstage, someone was already writing her first accusation. In 1967, at the Monterey Pop Festival, 24-year-old Janis Joplin, with Big Brother and the Holding Company, sang Piece of My Heart like she was tearing the sky apart. Her raw, powerful voice was a challenge to the world. That night, she became a star. The album Cheap Thrills in 1968 hit #1 on Billboard, selling millions. The press crowned her the Queen of Rock, but that spotlight wasn't warm. It was cold, sharp with thorns. They called her the Judy Garland of rock, hinting at a talented but self-destructive star. They scrutinized her tangled hair, her braless style, the bottle of Southern Comfort she gripped on stage. "She's too wild, too much," they whispered. She heard their words. But did they ever hear her sing? Each judgment was a knife, slicing into a self-esteem already scarred from Port Arthur. Janis smiled for the cameras, but inside, she wondered, Do they love me? Or just the image I've made? In 1970, Janis returned to Port Arthur for a high school reunion, hoping for acceptance. She wore a fur coat, round sunglasses, and drove a psychedelic Porsche. But when she entered the room, an old friend avoided her gaze. On the class name tag, her name was misspelled Janis Joplin, as if she didn't exist. Her parents stood in a corner, quickly clearing plates when she approached, offering no embrace. They still see me as the odd one, she told a friend, her voice bitter. She clung to her Southern Comfort bottle as if it were the only one who recognized her in that old house. The shame burned like a fire, consuming her heart. She turned to drugs to douse that fire. Heroin and alcohol helped her forget the cold stares, but they pulled her deeper into darkness. Each drink made her feel smaller, like the girl once called a freak at school. Was fame a curse, or did those around her push Janis toward a mysterious death? If she hadn't been famous, maybe she'd have been forgiven. But would anyone have heard that voice if Janis wasn't a star? Would she have been truly loved? Keep watching to find out. Chapter 3. The Betrayal of Love and Despair. She screamed into the phone, but the other end was just static. Love, as always, had abandoned her. Janis Joplin sat in a smoky apartment, clutching a Southern Comfort bottle like an old friend. The dim light fell on a crumpled photo of Seth Morgan, the man she dreamed of building a home with. An engagement ring lay alone in a drawer, taken off and put back, like a broken promise. On the table, next to a syringe, was a broken comb like the shattered dream she never shared. Love was the only light she craved, but it always flickered out, leaving her with heroin, the friend that never betrayed her. But was it only drugs that killed her, or the wounds bleeding from her heart? Janis loved fiercely, like she sang. Chris Christopherson wrote Me and Bobby McGee inspired by her, but then left. Leonard Cohen spent one night with her at the Chelsea Hotel in 1968, only to vanish at dawn. Peggy Caserta whispered sweet words in the dark, but didn't stay. They love my voice, not me, she told a friend, her voice trembling. Someone saw Janis sitting on a stoop at midnight, staring into the distance. When asked, she just shook her head. Nobody came. She stood before crowds, singing Piece of My Heart like she was ripping her soul apart. But when the stage lights dimmed, there was only silence. No messages, no calls returned, just silence, the slowest killer of all. Seth Morgan, her fiancé in 1970, was her last hope. He's different, she said, her eyes lighting up as she dreamed of a house, children. But Seth often left her alone. On October 3rd, 1970, Janis called him from the Landmark Hotel, 3 times in 1 hour. Hotel records show, but Seth said he got no calls. A crumpled note on her table she wrote, crossed out, wrote again, just 7 words. Have you ever seen the real me? She never sent it, she just wanted to be loved, Peggy Caserta recalled, her voice heavy with regret. Janis threw endless parties, Southern Comfort flowing like a river, heroin blurring the pain. But friends saw her growing lonelier, a ghost under neon lights. Each betrayal made Janis feel unworthy. She looked in the mirror, seeing a tired face, eyes red. Who am I without the stage, she wondered. The press judged too wild, too much. The people she loved turned away. I make love to 25,000 people on stage, but go home alone, she said, her voice choking. Each needle was a self-inflicted wound, as if punishing herself for not being loved. Her soul was like broken glass, more fragile with every abandonment. Did someone see her crumbling and still turn away? If so, was her death from drugs? Or from people? Could a true love have saved Janis? Or did those she loved push her to a mysterious end? Chapter 4. A Battle Against Herself. Janis Joplin stood before a mirror, staring at a weary face, eyes burning red. Who am I without the stage, she asked, her trembling hand touching a broken comb on the table. In a drawer by her bed, a letter in blue ink, folded in half, held her final line. I'm afraid without drugs, I'm not Janis Joplin anymore. She was the queen of rock, but also a girl fighting a shattered sense of worth. Each heroin needle didn't just numb her, it whispered, soothed, then strangled her when no one was looking. Every injection was like punishing herself for not being good enough, proper enough, or lovable enough. Janis fell into heroin's grip in the mid-1960s. By 1969, she spent $200 a day on drugs equivalent to $700 today. Once, she hurled a makeup lamp at a mirror, shards stuck in the wall, as if reflecting the self she despised. She tried rehab in Brazil in 1970, standing under a blue sky, telling herself, "I want to live, but back in America." The stage lights and judging eyes pulled her back. "Drugs let me feel everything," she told Dick Cavett, her voice catching. "But I hate myself for needing them." That blue ink letter, never sent, was a confession she hid. She wrote it on sleepless nights, when heroin was the only friend left. In 1969, in Tampa, Florida, Janis was arrested for yelling at police after refusing to calm a crowd. She shouted, furious, as if unloading all her pain on the world. "They want me to behave, never," she roared. But a cop recalled after her outburst. She went quiet, sat down, and covered her face like a child who'd broken her own toy. "I messed it all up," she whispered to a friend later, tears in her eyes. She blamed herself, not for the arrest, but for failing to tame the demon inside. Janis faced a world of judgment. The press called her wild, ridiculous. Fans loved her voice but feared her true self. She sang Summertime like she was tearing her heart open, but when the lights went out, she saw only the girl called a freak in Port Arthur. "I'm not good enough," she thought, staring into a broken mirror. Heroin became her escape, but also her shackles. She wondered, if I stop, will anyone remember Janis Joplin? Her soul was a battlefield, where she fought herself and lost a little more each day. Each night, she clutched her southern comfort, staring at Seth Morgan's crumpled photo, the unsent note. Have you ever seen the real me? She wanted love, but feared she didn't deserve it. Each needle was self-blame, as if erasing herself. She forgave everyone, her parents, lovers, fans, but herself, maybe she never tried. Could Janis have found peace by forgiving herself? Or was she destined for a mysterious death? Chapter 5, Fragile Happiness, The Last Light. In the summer of 1970, Canadian sunlight poured through the windows of the Festival Express train, where Janis Joplin beamed alongside the full-tilt boogie band. She sang with the Grateful Dead, Southern comfort in hand, as if the darkness was left behind. "This is my family," she said, her eyes shining like flames, but a friend said that night. Janis dreamed the stage lights went out mid-song, leaving her alone, her voice lost in silence. This happiness was fragile, a candle before a storm, and the shadow of addiction still lurked, waiting. Janis was working on Pearl, called a masterpiece in the making by producer Paul Rothchild, in the studio. She glowed, telling her band, "Don't ever leave me." On October 1st, 1970, she recorded Mercedes-Benz, her final song. She strode into the studio, laughing, her raspy voice belting. "Lord, won't you buy me a Mercedes-Benz," the engineer said after she finished. She went silent, staring at the microphone as if seeing something far away. "Everything okay?" "Janis," he asked. She nodded, but her eyes were lost, as if she knew time was running out. "I'm living true," she said, her smile fading. Under the studio lights, Janis was a queen, but friends noticed her face was swollen, pained from drugs. She tried rehab, standing before a mirror, clutching the crumpled note. "Have you ever seen the real me?" But heroin always returned, like a whisper she couldn't resist. "I don't want to die," she told a friend, her voice shaking. She sang Pearl like a last will, each note a piece of her broken heart. The press still judged, "She's too wild." Fans loved her voice, but no one saw the girl crumbling inside. In the studio, someone dropped a glass. The shatter went uncleaned, like Janis's broken dream of happiness. She clutched her southern comfort, staring into a cracked mirror, seeing the girl who once dreamed of stages in Port Arthur. This happiness, like Louisiana's neon glow, was an illusion. She stood on the edge, but no one noticed. Sometimes, The brightest light shines just before it goes out. Janis smiled. But was it a sign of renewal? Or a final goodbye? Could that fragile light have saved her? Or was it a warning of the tragedy to come? Chapter 6. Despair, the final 24 hours and a mystery. Room 105. The Landmark Hotel. Pale yellow light. An ashtray brims with cigarette butts. Pillows crumpled. The bed empty. Janis Joplin had just walked in, and the countdown began. On October 3rd, 1970, she sat alone. A blue ink letter folded in a drawer, I'm afraid, without drugs. I'm not Janis Joplin anymore. Her soul was like shattered glass, and heroin was the only thing holding her together. But that dose would take everything. 3:30 in the afternoon, Janis called Seth Morgan from the Landmark Hotel 3 times in 1 hour, but only static answered. She turned to a drug dealer, getting a dose of heroin 40 to 50% pure, a batch that killed 8 others in Los Angeles. 5:30 in the afternoon in the studio. She laughed with the full tilt boogie band, saying, "You're my family," but a friend said in a photo from that day. Janis didn't look at the camera, her eyes empty. 12:30 in the morning, October 4th, 1970. She drank at Barney's Beanery, saying, "I'm fine," but gripped her Southern Comfort bottle like it held her loneliness. 1:30 in the morning. She bought cigarettes, chatting with the desk clerk. "Everything good?" "Miss Joplin?" he asked. She smiled, then entered her room. A thud, a body still. Janis injected heroin, collapsed on the floor. Beside the broken comb in the note, "Have you ever seen the real me?" Just $4.50 were in her hand. Peggy Caserta claimed it wasn't an overdose, but a fall on the carpet, a broken nose, and suffocation. The coroner's report said otherwise heroin was the culprit. Or was it? Why didn't anyone in her circle answer the phone, a friend wondered. Why was the coroner's report released so fast? That heroin batch, where did it come from? Some whispered. Janis knew about Jimi Hendrix's death 16 days earlier. She was silenced. Another rumor Seth Morgan was an FBI informant, monitoring her anti-war performance plans. She knew too much. A friend said, voice trembling. Room 105 was like a crime scene. The ashtray, the blue ink letter, the Southern Comfort bottle all told a wordless story. Janis fell alone. But who left her there? Who truly dimmed her light? And why did the evidence seem too convenient? Was Janis's death an accident, a choice, or a conspiracy? Epilogue, a legacy, the flame still burns. Janis Joplin died, but her voice, it still burns, like an echo from a rebellious era that never closed. Pearl, released in 1971, became a masterpiece, with Me and Bobby McGee hitting #1 on Billboard. She inspired Pink, Melissa Etheridge, and millions of rock fans. In 1995, Janis was inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, her star shining on the Hollywood Walk of Fame. But her legacy isn't just music. It's the story of a girl who dared to live true, even at the cost of her life. In 1970, she funded a headstone for Bessie Smith, engraved, "The greatest blues singer in the world will never stop singing." That act revealed a kind heart, always empathizing with the forgotten. Yet Janis herself was quickly forgotten. The media moved on, like she never existed, a fan wrote. The 1979 film The Rose, starring Bette Midler, was how later generations remembered her, a rock queen broken by fame. Janis faced sexism in the 1960s music industry. "They wanted me as a rock queen, but no one wanted the real girl inside," she told Peggy Caserta. Addiction and loneliness consumed her. But her story doesn't end there. Some whispered Seth Morgan was an FBI informant, watching Janis for her anti-war performance plans. Others said she was silenced for knowing about Jimi Hendrix's death. She knew too much, a friend recalled. But those voices fell silent. The blue ink letter, broken comb, unsent note, they remained in room 105, pieces of an unsolved mystery. The coroner said heroin. But why was that batch so pure? Why did 8 others die that night? The answers sank into darkness. like the neon glow of Louisiana that once guided Janis. Janis was a victim of her time, a world unkind to strong women, unforgiving to those who lived true. She forgave her parents, lovers, fans, but never herself. Her voice was a proclamation, a flame no one could extinguish. That night, someone heard singing echo through the Landmark Hotel's halls. A note, a laugh, then silence. Maybe she never left. If Janis had lived, would the world have handled the truth she was ready to speak? Share your thoughts below